Hello, everyone. So today's live is all about how to be a sugar addict gone. so let's put this differently. How to be a fat burner and not a sugar addict. So I'm excited to share some of the ideas that have really helped me along the journey in terms of getting off this addiction to sugar and knowing, can you just get that lighting like, and knowing that it's really easy for us to eat healthy foods and not be addicted to sugar if you know what the shortcuts are. So in today's live, as if you join as I go through, various parts of this, just please do feel free to leave me a comment or a question on anything that I'm asking. And I've already got some notes here prepared of things that I want to go through, but I will just share more around anything that you particularly want to know. Now, what do we mean when I say like a fat burner over being a sugar addict? Well, the thing that's important to first know is that there are three major macronutrients, right? So the three major macronutrients are fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. So understanding what they are is really helpful to understand how the body interacts with them. I'm just obviously simplifying everything for you because I've been doing this for nearly 10 years. And when I read through the science, I do 2 hours of self-study every day. I just find that for most people, it's overwhelming. When we use terms like, antioxidants and anti-inflammatory, I know that most people don't really get what that means because this isn't necessarily your field, right? And I know that there's also a group of people that educate them so much around nutrition that do, but I just like to simplify everything for you. So the first thing I want to share around what these macronutrients do is that carbohydrates and fats are two similar energy sources. Both of them are basically, as when you compare them to protein, are giving the body energy, right? But in different ways. So if you imagine that fat is a slow burning energy and carbohydrates is a fast burning energy. Protein aside, protein is there to repair the cells. So when you think about people that work out a lot, they have protein shakes. That's the reason why protein is great for cellular repair. Now, if fats and carbohydrates are an energy source and one is slow burning and one is fast burning, you might think that that getting things that are faster, more efficient is better, right? So you need to really understand the difference. Now, carbohydrates convert into the body to sugar. So when we think of sugar, what we're really talking about is a highly more refined version of a carbohydrate source. So much more processed. It gets to that result a lot faster. Whereas when we think about carbohydrates, because we know that we can have more starchier versions of carbohydrates, for example, whole grains that take longer to break down into sugars, then we tend to notice that we tend to think of carbohydrates as slightly different to sugar. But essentially, carbohydrates convert to sugar in the body. It's just about the rate of conversion. Now, I want to give the example that if you've watched a lot of my short videos, especially on Instagram, that I give just to really get this, to drill this home, the difference between a slow burning energy source and a fast burning energy source in your body. So imagine I say to you that we're going to have a great barbecue today and we've got friends coming and they're coming at all times of the day. So I really need to make sure that the barbecue lasts all day. And, for those that come later, there's, the barbecue's, the fire's still going and, we're able to put more stuff on later on. So I then say to you, I'm going to give you two sources of fuel to keep the barbecue going. You just choose which one is best for you, bearing in mind the outcome, right? And the objective that you want to get. So I'm going to give you coal. So we all know what coal is, right? And I'm going to also give you paper. Which one do you prefer? Now, tell me which one do you think is going to be the best? right? You will always choose the coal because you know that that coal is going to be that slow burning energy source that will keep that fire going for longer. Whereas when you put the paper on, you already know that the paper will burn. Great. Paper will burn in the fire, but it will burn so fast that what will happen to keep that fire going, you will have to keep on adding more and more paper constantly, right? So what I want you to think of is that the body is literally that barbecue. And the fuel source that you choose to put into your metabolism, so your metabolism is literally just the rate at which your body's burning this energy, right? So the fuel that you choose to put into that metabolism can be the coal or can be the paper. So for the fire, your metabolism is that fire. So when you choose good fats, what you're actually choosing is to put the coal into your fire, which is a metabolism, as opposed to when you choose sugar, which is deciding that you're going to put paper onto that fire, your metabolism. Okay? So we always, wherever possible, want to choose to put good fats into the body, right? Now, you notice that I say good fats, and I don't like to define food so much into good or bad, but for the purpose of just understanding what we mean here, because the confusion around fats and, fats was, now it's getting, back to be the good guys, but, it did become the enemy for so long. Now, most people understand that sugar is something that they need to really address. But, there is still a scarcity around the word fat. And a lot of that's linked to our association in our brain around the word fat. I don't want to be fat, if I might get fat by eating this. So as we know, when we associate words, like think about when you associate, when you think of the word cockroach, do you think of something good? No, right? When you think about the word butterfly, what comes to your mind? So this is what's happened to so many of us with the word fat. We're so scared of getting fat that we have this bad association with fat. But we need fat to survive, right? So let's look at this now. So we know that our metabolism is now the fire. Okay. And we know that we want to choose these energy sources that are going to be efficient for the fire. So how does this look like now when it comes to breaking down what we need to think about when we talk about good fat? So I always will teach you that, for me, it's not about whichever diet is in fashion at the moment, whether it be keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian. You have to understand what diet works well for you. So if you look through my videos, you'll see that a couple of weeks ago, I also did a live on personalized nutrition plan. So once you've figured out what kind of food, what diet works for you, the most important thing to know is that your body was designed to focus on eating real foods. So what is real food? Real foods are foods that come from nature. They were grown, they used to be alive, or if you eat meat, fish, in the case of meat or fish, they used to make a noise, okay? So these are foods that come from nature. Processed foods are foods that are so far away from its original source. So these are now in the modern day are made from man and machines. So the whole saying of if it's made from a plant, eat it. If it's made in a plant, i.e. machinery, don't eat it, rings truth here. So when we apply this to fat, processed fats are a lot of these, like, for example, highly processed seed oils that are really destructive, in terms of our digestive system, being able to break down the molecules of them. They just don't work in our body very well because we weren't designed to process these down. I'm definitely going to do a video on these processed seed oils to go into a lot more on that. So when we think of a lot of the, processed fatty foods, so we think of things like, cakes and pastries and a lot of the sweet things that we do, that we have, that highly processed foods that are heavy in fats, okay? There might be calorie dense foods, right? Even processed meats that contain a lot of bad fats inside them, okay? So now you've got some examples, right? So for example, sunflower oil, vegetable oils as those fats, or the cakes, the biscuits, the sweets, all of these really highly processed foods that are not in their original source. These are very different to good fats. Good fats, for example, like the oils, can be the cold pressed oils. So if you take an example of extra virgin olive oil, where the machine has pressed the fruit of the olive, right? They've pressed it and extracted the oil in a natural way. So you're not using a lot of machinery that, process the oils, takes out all the fibers, all the good nutrients, and using high temperature that damages the cellular structure of the plant. That's not what's happening, right? With things like, cold pressed olive oil, so extra virgin olive oil, which is cold pressed. We also see the same in, coconut oils, a lot of the nut oils. So like walnut oil, avocado oil is another great one. And then, dairy. So assuming that you're not lactose intolerant, which again, I've done videos around lactose intolerance and dairy, but dairy is a great form of good fat. So butter, milk, cheese, cream, these all come from dairy animals, right? So cows, goats, and sheep, they're dairy animals. So we use their produce, so it's from nature, their produce to make yogurts, cream, butter. These are all churned versions of the milk of these dairy animals. And that is a form of good fat. Avocados, I see avocado as the vegan butter. It's just a fantastic replacement for butter. It's creamy, it's satiating, it gives you that feeling of fullness. So this is a fantastic version of good fats. And nuts are also a really great form of good fats. And we know nowadays that a lot of people are starting to consume nuts in their butter form. So we can take almond butter as well as like peanut butter, cashew butter, walnut butter. So all of these, nut butters and the nuts are fantastic forms of good fats. So you have here an abundance, right? You can see the difference between good fats and bad fats, okay? And when we think about sugar, so we can look at the same. So you have natural sugars from nature, but you also have very processed sugars. So let's start with carbohydrates, which we know convert to sugar. So carbohydrates in their whole form from nature look like whole grains, for example, rice, oats, buckwheat, millet, teff, these are really good examples of whole grains, right? You do have processed versions of those, like, instant oats, they've had a lot of the fiber removed. So now there's a more processed version of oats, okay? Whereas if you look at like the steel cut oats, the really rough type whole rolled oats, these are more fibrous, they've not been heavily processed. We know that white rice is a version of slightly polished brown rice, okay, where some of the fiber has been removed. But rice flour would be a more heavily processed version of that, okay. Let's look at outside of the grains. Let's look at carbohydrate sources like potatoes. So white potatoes, sweet potatoes, there's red potatoes, there's so many different potato sources out there. These are all great carbohydrate sources that come from nature, right? We pull potatoes out of the ground, right? So these are great forms of carbohydrates that are from nature, that are not processed, right? Whereas, have you ever seen that kind of instant potato? Like in England, we used to call it smash. It was like you add hot water to this instant potato and you literally have mashed potato. Oh God. I used to have that as a child. It's so disgusting. The thought of it now and how processed it was. But, again, one of those examples of where the food industry have come along and tried to help us with convenience and also make money at the same time. And we've just gone, okay, yeah, It's still mashed potato, but it's not. It's very heavily processed. So this is going to convert faster to sugar in the body. Okay, let's look at the breakfast cereals, right? You have a lot of like sugar-laden processed oils versions of breakfast cereals, where you also have some really whole grains, like whole grain mueslis, and especially like you look at like places like Germany and Switzerland, they have beautiful mueslis that are made with the whole grains, nuts and seeds added. These are great forms of carbohydrates as well. Okay, then let's look at bread, pasta, noodles. These are all versions of processed carbohydrates. There's no tree out there called the bread tree. There's no tree out there called the pasta tree, right? Or the noodle tree. But we know that those come from grains that have been processed. You know, like bread was wheat, barley, rye, grain that had been heavily processed into flour. Noodles, the same, durum wheat, you know. What about rice? You know, noodles, you know, in Asia, we have a lot of rice noodles that were, you know, traditionally the rice was grinded down to make the rice flour, but now we use heavy machinery to really process those grains, stripping all the nutrients from the grains to make these noodles. You know, soba noodles in Japan, traditionally this was made from buckwheat, which is a naturally gluten-free great grain. But a lot of the versions now have been very heavily processed. So some of these foods that we eat, breads, pastas, noodles, the original versions of those were those grains that were manually grinded down to make the flours. But the versions that we have now with heavy machinery, all of the nutrients have been stripped. They're so heavily processed. That's why you see things like enriched bread, enriched flours, where they've had to bring in some of the nutrients in an unnatural way, because in the processing of those grains and making those breads, flours, noodles, whatever, they no longer have any of the natural nutrients that those foods contain. So you can see the difference. Now, that's carbohydrates, right? So let's look at sugar. So sugar in nature comes naturally in the form of fruit. So there are fruits that are really like, you know, full of sugar. So we talk about, so like low glycemic, so the glycemic index is a range of measurement of when food converts to sugar. So low GI foods have low natural sugar conversion. So when we look at fruits, we have a lot of highly sugar fruits in the tropical fruits, like pineapples and mangoes. See, when you eat those fruits, they're so naturally sweet, right? But this is sugar from nature. You can go out and you can pick a mango from a tree, right? So these are what we want. Whereas when we look at, when you go to the supermarket now and you drink some of the orange juices out there that are heavily processed, the fiber's been removed, there's no natural sugars. They're adding sugars into it to sweeten them. This is not, even though that's, you know, on orange, these are the heavily processed sugared versions of what nature provides for us. You know, we have in nature fruits, like avocado is a fruit. You know, berries, strawberries, blueberries, citrus fruits like oranges and lemons, you know, limes that are low in GI, that are less sweet, but these are containing the natural sugars. Then what about other sugars that we use to sweeten our foods that are naturally sweet, like raw honey? Okay, so we get honey from the bees pollinating the plants and producing this beautiful nectar. That's from nature. You know, maple syrup, coconut, the nap, like I love this coconut nectar. It's the sap of the coconut flower. Yeah. So all of these, you know, cinnamon, coconut, naturally sweet. These are natural sweeteners that come from nature, from plants. Yeah, from the saps of plants. Yeah, from the pollination of plants. So these are natural sugars. So these are the foods that we want to be eating in abundance to curb the cravings for those processed sugars, okay? Because our body is designed to enjoy sugar. It was a caveman instinct that when we had sugar, when we had that taste of sugar, we would get that instant energy. So we'd sit under the trees, these fruit trees, and we'd binge of this beautiful fruity nectar because it would give us all of this energy that we would need, and it would give us that instant satisfaction of energy. Yeah. So this is our caveman instinct to enjoy those tastes for those fruits. So I want you to know that when you eat these foods, the brain is giving off neurotransmitters that are telling you that these foods are amazing. So we get these dopamine, serotonin hits. So these are the neurotransmitters that are released from our brain to say that this is so fulfilling, it's so enjoyment. Serotonin is like the happy feeling. Okay, so these are the neurotransmitters that our brain is releasing, that's communicating to our gut via the vagus nerve, direct communication to our gut, saying that these foods are amazing. So the food industry know this. So what they've done is they've sabotaged our foods by bringing in these sugars so that you get that serotonin hit, you get your dopamine hit. Ice cream, pizzas, donuts, they have the 50-50 ratio that the food industry have come to realize. 50% fat, 50% sugar, that ratio is the most addictive ratio. So if you feel that those foods you absolutely love, it's not your fault. But know this, no amount of willpower will be able to overcome those neurotransmitters that are so powerful that are going on in the brain when you eat these foods. So what do? Well, you understand that when you consume more fats, good healthy fats, and you make sure that fats is in your diet and a great part of your diet, you understand that your body will know that I'm getting this energy source, so I don't need to crave for the sugar. When you do eat the sugar, when you take the sugar from its natural source, where it has the fiber, like the fruit, and it's slower released into the body, then you don't get this spike of sugar that you get from the processed versions, which are always followed by a crash afterwards. So what you get is you get this slow burning energy source, like the coal in the fire, right? So you're feeding your metabolism. You're feeding your body with this slow burning energy source that comes from the good fat. So when your metabolism has this, it starts to go, oh, I have this constant fuel, this constant source of energy. I'm good. And so you notice that those cravings that you have for sugar slowly start to disappear. And when you do have the need for sugar, you bring in those natural forms, so you satisfy that. So this is what's also happening in the keto diet. In the keto diet, people are training themselves to use fat as the main energy source and reducing the carbohydrate and sugar content, like below 100 grams and then sometimes below 50 grams, so that the body gets a small dose of that to satisfy those cravings, but the body switches in to fat burning, burning those ketones. So feeding those ketones that are fueling, we call it the mitochondria in the fat cells, right? The process called ATP, where we're releasing the energy in those cells by fueling them, providing the natural fuel in those cells. And so your body gets to burn this fat source. The body switches on into fat burning zone, into burning this fat, because it's like, if you're going to keep on feeding me with this fat, I better get burning. And it doesn't go into starvation mode. It doesn't go into this mode that we have when we're addicted to sugar, where we need to constantly be running for our sugar fix, because we get this energy source, but a bit like the paper, it's gone. And then our body sends these signs that, okay, I need more, need more, need more. So I hope this is becoming really clear to you. If you want to turn your body into a fat burning machine, this is the journey. You slowly bring in more of these good fats. You increase them. You make sure they're in every meal. And I highly recommend you look at things like MTC, God, why is that coming into my mind? Yeah. So when we look at oils, like there are fat burning molecules that are easily digested by the body, like MTC. When we look at these oils, we know that, and it, just so you know, it stands for medium chain triglycerides. Sorry, I said MTC. Medium chain triglycerides. It's MCT oil. Yeah. MCT, I need some MCT oil right now because you see our brain is mostly fat. And so I've obviously not been fueling my brain with fat, which I haven't actually. I'm in a fasted state right now. So I'm really trying to wait until I introduce more good fats I'm going to have after this video. But MCT oil is a really great oil to bring in these easy burning molecules of fat that literally go straight into the cells, get broken down easily, and provide these cells with a great source of good fats. So I really recommend you looking at things like MCT whilst you're making that transition from reducing your need, your addiction to carbohydrates and sugar as your energy source and slowly moving to fat. Look at every meal and look at, okay, where is the good fats in my breakfast? For example, my nut butter, maybe I'm going to put a tablespoon of nut butter in my smoothie, coconut milk, maybe you could use as a liquid for your smoothie, an avocado maybe with some eggs. Look at your lunch. You can drizzle extra virgin olive oil as a dressing. You can roast your vegetables for dinner in great coconut oils or olive oil. It's really easy when you start thinking about this, how to, incorporate good fats into every meal. And you'll slowly start to notice that your sugar cravings will reduce and you will notice your fat burning turn on. And this is how you turn your body into a fat burning machine. So guys, if you want to know more about this, I would highly recommend, firstly, that you look at my website, elika.co. Over there, I have a free PDF called Eating for Energy. And that's where I summarize everything that I'm talking about there in that document. It's a fantastic free resource. So head to elika.co and make sure you get that free document, Eating for Energy. Also, I want to continue to grow this channel. Like I said, I'm new to doing lives. I'm new to growing this channel. You'll see most of my stuff over on Instagram and through my newsletters that I've been sharing over the last 10 years. So I want to grow this channel. So I'm really keen to hear from you. What do you want me to talk about more? What is it you want to learn about more? I'm really here to know that, that if you are like me and you've realized that health is our true wealth, I want to be your accountability partner and support you on this health journey. So please do subscribe to my channel. I would love you to be a part of this journey that I'm on, also growing this channel. Do share this video with someone that you think also might be looking to turn their body into a fat burning machine and will really, be able to utilize this simply broken down information. That's what I'm all about, simplifying things. So that might be able to use this to really support their journey as well. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you think and, what sort of information you want me to share moving forward. So it's been lovely to share this with you. Take care, and I will be back with another new topic soon. Take care.